My, what a handsome fellow on that horse! Oh, hello. I didn't hear you come in.
Ha ha! You've been duped. 'Twas not me, but a pumpkin cleverly carved to resemble me. A classic Halloween trick. And now, for a classic Halloween treat. So you've carved your jack-o'-lantern to ward off evil spirits. But what do you do with all of the guts you've scraped out of the pumpkin? If you throw them onto the compost heap, the seeds will grow into pumpkins next year, storm your house, and seek revenge on you for disfiguring their brethren. Fortunately, there is an easy and delicious way to squash the pumpkin uprising before it begins. Tonight, we're making toasted pumpkin seeds.
You'll need a pumpkin. Honestly, you can roast the seeds from any edible winter squash. One of my favorite types of squash, for both flesh and seeds, is butternut, but of course tonight we're using a pumpkin. You'll need a colander to rinse the seeds. You'll also need a baking sheet. Other flat baking ware such as a sheet cake pan will also work, but a baking sheet will work best for this, preferably one with a lip around the edge, unlike the one you see here. Oil is sort of optional. Some recipes don't call for it at all. I use a little bit. Something with a high smoking point such as canola oil is best. An oil mister or a can of sprayable cooking oil is also optional, but can be useful if you also want to coat the tops of the seeds in oil. Frankly, it's unnecessary. One of the most common pumpkin seed seasonings is salt, although seasoning them at all is optional. If you prefer, you can omit the salt for an even healthier snack. I'll be using a little bit of salt and my old standby, chili powder. You can season the pumpkin seeds with whatever you like. I bet rosemary would be delicious. You could use Italian herbs, even cinnamon and sugar, whatever you fancy. I've recently learned that some people take the extra step of boiling their pumpkin seeds before they roast them, something I had never tried before. I'll be trying it tonight, so I'll also need a saucepan. Oven temperatures in pumpkin seed recipes vary wildly, from 250 to 400. I have found 375 degrees Fahrenheit to be almost perfect for this. Separating the seeds from the guts is one of the most time-consuming, painstaking parts of this process, although some of your larger jack-o'-lantern pumpkins tend to have looser seeds, such as these. Even so, this can be a long, messy process. There's really no trick to it, but I have found taking a handful of goop and squeezing it so that the seeds slide between my fingers to be a pretty good method. However you do it, just get as much of the goop off of the seeds as you can. Don't worry if you have little bits of it left over. It's edible, and we're going to be rinsing the seeds anyway. Once you've separated the seeds from the guts, place them in your colander and rinse them thoroughly under cold water. Stir them around a bit, and use a sprayer if you have one. Now I'm going to boil half of these seeds and roast the other half straight away so that I can compare them. The recipes I've seen that suggest boiling give a ratio of 2 cups of water and 2 teaspoons of salt for every half cup of seeds. I'm just going to eyeball this, adding what looks like enough water and a few teaspoons of salt. This should all be given a good stir, brought to a boil, and then simmered for 10 minutes. Then simply drain the seeds as if they were pasta and set them aside to cool and dry a bit. I do honestly think that this was a good step to take, as the seeds were softened, plumped up a bit, and were a bit cleaner and drier on the outside. As for the seeds that weren't boiled, I used a paper towel to blot them dry. They don't need to be bone dry, in fact a little moisture helps the salt to stick. I'm just sopping up some of the excess water after rinsing them. As I mentioned earlier, not all recipes call for oil, and pumpkin seeds don't always stick, but they sometimes do, and a light coating of oil on your baking sheet will help to prevent this. Now, the pumpkin seeds can be fairly densely packed on the baking sheet, but they should all be more or less in a single layer. Some recipes suggest spraying the tops of the seeds with cooking oil as well. I don't recommend this. I made 6 batches and tried it with 2. It doesn't do much other than make the seeds extra oily. I do recommend a light sprinkling of salt, but feel free to adjust the amount to your taste or omit it entirely. Now, I made a mistake with this first batch. I sprinkled them with chili powder before I roasted them. I'm not sure why I did this, as I know that the chili powder will scorch in the oven. But you can learn from my mistake. If you're going to season your pumpkin seeds with anything other than salt, Season them after you have roasted them. Place the pumpkin seeds in the preheated oven and roast them for about 20 minutes, using a spatula to carefully stir them about halfway through the roasting time. Once they start to brown, watch them carefully, as they can burn quickly. They should be done when most of the seeds are mostly brown. At that point, even if some of the seeds are still mostly white, they should be sufficiently toasted. I have a lot of seeds to roast, so I'm putting some of them in the toaster oven as well. This shaved about 5 minutes off of the total roasting time. When the seeds are done, carefully remove them from the oven and transfer them to the heat-tolerant dish of your choice. In total, I made 6 batches, 3 each of the boiled and non-boiled seeds. I definitely recommend boiling them first. Those seeds turned out to have a better texture overall. They were crunchier without being drier, and they were easier to chew. The toaster oven was faster and more efficient than the oven, and I slightly preferred the seeds from the toaster oven, but it would be easier to accidentally burn the seeds in the toaster oven. So, boil them, bake them at 375 for 20 minutes, and season them however you like. Next year, I'm trying rosemary.
Oh my, these pumpkin seeds are mighty tasty.
Silly jack-o'-lantern, you can't eat pumpkin seeds. That would make you a cannibal. All the more from me. Tune in next time for information on something else.